Hello, everybody, sports fans everywhere, and welcome to another fantastic episode of Marauder Morning. We are back a little more organized. If you tuned in on the radio last week to check out our episode, we had a little highlights of some great interviews we did last year because I couldn't figure out how to get these guys scheduled up to come on the show, which is totally my fault. But here we are, back and all prepared and ready. We even had a prep meeting this week and all the good stuff. So we're ready to talk some sports for real, getting back into the groove of everything. I'll just start with, how are you guys doing today? It's good to have you back after a week off.
Not too bad, the usual, stuck inside. So.
Yeah, I guess there's not too many life updates for anyone right now. But as long as you guys are good and reasonably happy, then I think we're good. Let's go through what we're going to talk about today on the show. We're going to start with Ryan's going to hit us with some NHL news. He's our NHL correspondent. Then we're going to go into a redux of an old segment that's gone away for a while but has now come back. Mark's Premier League report is back this week, so stick around for that. We're also going to talk a little bit about the upcoming Super Bowl, and then we're going to talk about the new age of Toronto sports, hopefully. So if you're a Toronto sports fan, stick around for that at the end of the show. And we're going to wrap it all up with a draft of our best sports cities. And Toronto might make even an appearance in that. Does that all sound good to you guys?
Sounds good.
Yes, sir.
Right on. Then let's throw it over to Ryan. Ryan, I understand you have a big trade to talk about and also some concerns about the NHL bubble. I'll let you decide where to start. Take it away.
Yeah, the whole bubble thing. I think the NBA and the NHL they had it perfect last year. They were able to get everyone in a bubble, and you've seen how well it worked. But this year, you can see at the start just how much it's hurting teams like Dallas, Florida. They had to start their season 2 weeks later than usual. But I mean, they've come out hot. They're both 3-0. So maybe it's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing, I don't know. Mm-hmm. And then you got teams like Tampa Bay and Carolina. Their 2 games they were supposed to play back-to-back. They got postponed, and they got Las Vegas. Their coaching staff had to isolate for 2 weeks the other day, just because of precautions. And a big storyline was the Washington Capitals. They had 4 guys that grouped up in a hotel room. And they were fined $100,000 just for doing so. And I don't know. To me, it's weird because so you share a bench together, you share the locker room together, you share a bus together, you share a plane together, but they can't go outside of their own room to the next room. So it was a little confusing to me. I want to ask you guys like what you think of that.
Yeah. Yeah, NBA, like you mentioned, is going through some similar concerns right now, and they've kind of introduced the measure where you have to wear a mask on the sideline and stuff like that, but it is still kind of confusing. It's kind of an oxymoron to have these sports running and still try to ask for perfect safety. I'm confused right along with you as to how they can kind of do the doublespeak thing and ask for a perfect world when it's just not going to happen. And I don't know. Maybe the bubble is the only real option. Mark, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's kind of funny as well. I think there was a clip about Kyrie and Bam at the end of a game.
Right.
They tried to trade jerseys after, and the security was like, no, you can't do that. It's just funny because they were probably boxing each other out the whole game and just in contact with each other.
Sweating on each other and all this other stuff.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of it is for the cameras to just let the public know that, we're taking precautions. But, ultimately, if you think about it, they're still, with each other all the time on the court. And you're not really avoiding the virus by doing that.
Yeah, it's a good point, Mark, that they're kind of doing it for the cameras because, realistically, it does nothing. I think it is good that they're at least trying to make these things a reality, but it's just not a realistic scenario of handling these things.
Yeah, for me, I get it. I get it from the NHL player side because you don't want to just be limited with seeing your boys in the locker room and on the bench. You want to when you're you're waiting around for games and practices. You want to like chill with them, but they're also being paid like millions of dollars to play this game. So if you have to do it for like a season or two just to get everything over with, it's kind of like, okay, come on. Especially because Ovechkin was the main perpetrator. He's the captain of the team, so you'd think, that he would he'd be more responsible, but oh well. So yeah, that happened, and then the Dubois and Laine trade. I was trying to relate it to a basketball trade, just so then we could have a lot more to talk about.
Yeah.
And it's basically like a Westbrook for a Wall trade, but if
Okay.
they were 23.
Oh wow. Okay.
So you know what you're getting out of Westbrook. You know you're getting a guy that can average a triple-double, and you know what you're getting out of Wall, one of the fastest guards in the league. They're both really good, and they were both taken really high in their drafts. So that's basically what I would compare Dubois and Laine for. So they were picks number 2 and 3 in the 2016 draft.
Oh wow.
So Laine was number 2, and Dubois was number 3, and then Matthews went first in that draft. So Laine is, I would call him a weak man's Ovechkin. He's gonna score. I bet there's a year in his career where he'll score 50.
Wow.
He's all offense. He's really got like no defense, but he's working on that just like Ovechkin did.
Mm-hmm.
And then Dubois, he's an all-around center. Like he can do everything: play offense, play defense. They're both only getting better. They're both only 23, and they both didn't want to be on their teams. So that's why the trade makes perfect sense. And I think that was kind of the same thing for Westbrook and Wall. Wall didn't really want to be on Washington, and I don't really think that Westbrook wanted to be on the Rockets just because he knew that everything was coming with Harden. So yeah, that's my breakdown. And then there was a little extra. There's Jack Roslovic for a third, and Winnipeg had drafted Roslovic. He didn't really make the team. They didn't really know what to do with him, so they just swapped him for a third. So.
Did you mention which teams these guys went to and from?
So Laine went to the Columbus Blue Jackets, and Dubois went to the Winnipeg Jets.
All right.
So.
And do you see this immediately impacting them for this season, or do you think this is more of a, because these are young guys, it's, Westbrook for Wall was more of an immediate impact thing, or at least both teams hoped it would be. Do you see this as making moves to contend this year, or do you think these are both projects for the future?
Well, it's also a weird trade as well because they're both on 1-year deals.
Okay.
So they could be on their team for now and then not re-sign with the team they got traded to. So that's what makes it tricky. But if they both signed long term and they like what they're doing, I think Laine is really going to benefit from being on Columbus because his main concern was he wanted to be the number one guy. Like he wanted to be on the first line. He wanted to have everything run through him, and Winnipeg couldn't offer that to him because they have a lot of other guys like Scheifele and so on. So that's why he wanted out. And Dubois, I don't really know why he went out, why he wanted to trade. He never really disclosed it, but I know he there's a couple guys in Winnipeg that are going to retire, and he can fill that spot. They're in need of center depth. So I think if they sign a long term, that it'll be a long-term project, but for right now, I think they're both trying to prove how good they are so then they can land the biggest contract.
Right. So both teams could theoretically get out of this after 1 year. I think these are the kind of trades that I really like to see is guys on a 1-year deal. All right, let's swap them for basically nothing, our guy who we don't have in our plans for the future. And we can get a guy in here on a prove-it deal. If it works, and we'll keep him. And if it doesn't, we can move on. So I I'm not the NHL genius like you are, but from what I've heard from you, it sounds like a pretty equitable trade for both teams.
Yeah, and I was looking at Columbus's roster the other day, and they have a lot of young centers that they've drafted over the last few years, so I don't really think they're missing Dubois. Like, there's a guy who can fill his spot, so that's probably why they did it. They're looking for that big right-handed shot. So
right on.
Yeah.
There we go.
Then, yeah.
Anything else you want to add? I don't mean to cut you off.
No, I was just going to talk about how Colorado has been disappointing me so far.
Well, yeah, go for it. I'll
They
agree.
either look
Landeskog.
like the unstoppable team, or they look like they could be like way out in left field. Because the other day they beat a team 8-0. They beat the Kings 8-0, and then they had another game where I think they played the Ducks and they lost 4-2. And the Ducks are supposed to be like the last in the league. So yeah, it's concerning. But again, it's only like 7 games in, so
Right.
just got to keep watching.
There's time to wait and see.
Yeah, exactly.
But maybe we can turn this into sorry, go for it, Mark.
Does Colorado have the best power play in the NHL, or is that?
Yeah, they do. I think they have the best percentage so far. The other game when they beat LA 8-0, I think they scored 7 out of 8 times on the power play.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow.
Pretty insane.
Well, that's interesting you say that Colorado is inconsistent. Obviously, you're a Colorado Avalanche fan. Maybe we can turn this into kind of a larger philosophical discussion about fandom of teams. Is it the worst out of the 3 major options? You have, a great contender team, you have a trash bag, bottom of the league team, and somewhere in the middle you have teams that are just totally inconsistent and can't pick a direction. Is it worse to have a team that wins some and loses some than to have just a total trash pile team? Because at least you know where your team's going. From my perspective, that's how I always thought of this. Like, at least with the terrible team, okay, you're going to get a draft pick. We know we're terrible, and it can't get any worse than this. But I remember, like, for me, I'm a Carolina Panthers fan, and in 2015, I think, they went 7-8-1 and barely scraped into the playoffs. And that was the worst, because I was like, I would so much rather you guys just be a terrible team and get a good draft pick. What do you guys think of that idea?
Yeah, I don't know. I think, yeah, like obviously you want your team to win, and the players obviously aren't gonna be throwing games and stuff, but it's annoying when you're kind of in that middle ground. Like, you're not actually competing with the rest of the league,
right?
Yet you're still like not in a good spot for the draft, or like you're not going to get any good free agents coming soon.
Right. Like think of your Celtics, right? Like when they were the Isaiah Thomas years. Okay, Isaiah Thomas was fun, and that makes that a lot better. But they were never really going to compete with that roster, and that could be really frustrating as a fan, I think.
Yeah, that was tough because I think Boston was first in the East one of those years with Isaiah Thomas. But, like, I think everyone knew, like, okay, you're first in the East, but if you meet Cleveland with LeBron in a series, come on, like, he's 5'8" versus LeBron James. Like, you're not going to win a series.
No.
So that was tough because I knew we weren't going to the finals.
Right. Ryan, any thoughts to add on that?
Yeah, for me, Colorado, a couple of years ago, they were, like, bottom last of the league. Like, they set a record for, like, the new worst record. And like it was easy because I knew they were going to lose. Like I knew that's what they were aiming for. They wanted the first round pick. So yeah, it was easy. But now going into this season, like I know it's only 7 games in, but there's so much hype around them. Everyone's saying, oh, they're probably going to win the cup, blah, blah, blah. But to see them struggle, yeah, like I would much rather them just like, okay, you're either last or you're first. Like you're either going to win every game or you're going to lose every game. Don't make my expectations so high and then come out of the gate stumbling.
Yeah, right on. Well, we got a little bit away from the hockey point. Thank you for indulging me, Ryan, and thank you for your great update on the NHL season. We will surely have much more of that coming up. Still early in the season, so lots to go there. Let's hand the mic over to our other host, Mark, because we're bringing back everyone's favorite segment, the Premier League Report, sponsored by Mark. What do you got? I understand we have a coaching change or a managerial change, maybe as they call it, over in the Premier League. Give us the updates.
Yes, sir. So the biggest update has been Chelsea. Chelsea fired their manager or their coach. So it was Frank Lampard. He was also like a really loved player when he was a player during his career, won a lot. And so he had a decent season last year. So over the summer, Chelsea signed a lot of superstars, spent a lot of money in the transfer window, and had high expectations for the team. And the whole league thought they were going to be first, but it's a very underwhelming season thus far. And Chelsea's been known for firing their managers if they're not doing well and not giving them much time to work it out. So they fired him, brought in another coach, and they just played today. I was just watching it before we were recording, and they drew 0-0, but it's looking a little better. It's looking a little better.
It's better than a loss.
Yeah.
So who do we got incoming? Do you have anything to report about the incoming coach?
Yeah. So the coach, the new coach they brought in is former coach of PSG.
Okay.
You guys know PSG? Yeah. So he coached PSG to a Champions League final a couple of years ago, but PSG fired him. I don't really know how coaching works in soccer. I feel like everyone's just getting fired. But yeah, we brought in PSG's former coach, who's pretty well respected around the world. So
winning pedigree.
Hopefully it works out.
Yeah, you mentioned all those superstars they signed in the off season or during the transfer window. Are they competitive? Do they? Last time I checked, they were 8th place in the Premier League. Is this season dead and done, or can they pull it
out? So based off my amateur knowledge of the Premier League, I don't know. I think there's still hope just because you have all those pieces, and like Chelsea's one of the top 6 teams in the league, and so I think everyone expects them to still compete. There's still a lot of season left, but it's not looking like the team has any chemistry right now. A lot of the new signings aren't playing well at all, and so it's just a whole mess for Chelsea. Just sad.
Premier League and soccer as a whole is so interesting because think of the Premier League. You have a couple teams which are just such huge brands, major brands with so much focus on them, like Chelsea, Manchester United, or Arsenal, any of those big name franchises. And then you have other clubs, like your Southamptons, who are not going to get any national or let alone international news time, and they play in the same league. So man, being a manager for one of those teams would be awfully gratifying, but it would be a huge spotlight, especially with how dedicated Premier League fans are. Yeah,
lots of pressure.
Ryan, anything to add Premier League wise?
I was just wondering how many games they're in. What's their record so far?
Right.
Oh man. So there's about 38 weeks in the season, and we're on week 21 right now. Okay. And I'm pretty sure Chelsea's I don't know. I'd have to look it up. They're not too well. They're so I guess similar to NHL and basketball, you fight for playoff spots.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the top 4 teams in the Premier League. Those are the teams that, I guess, instead of fighting for a playoff spot, they're fighting for a spot in the whole European tournament, which is the Champions League. So you need to be in the top 3 teams in the Premier League in order to qualify for the Champions League. So that's essentially what they're playing for, and Chelsea's in 8th place right now, so they're pretty far out.
Oh,
a little bit of a crawl back. But still some time, like you mentioned. So
I got about 12 more weeks.
All right. Well, we'll be keeping our eye on Chelsea. Anything else notable going on around the Premier League that we need to be updated on?
No.
No?
I'll just keep you guys updated on Chelsea stuff.
All right. It was the Chelsea report this week. Thank you, Mark. Report. It's good to have Premier League report back. The show feels more comfortable and familiar with Premier League report in it. So thank you for bringing that back. And there we go. All right, let's move on then. We're going to talk a little bit about the Super Bowl. We haven't done much NFL football this year. We talked a little bit around New Year's time as the regular season was coming to a close. We had a couple of weeks off there, so we didn't get a chance to talk about any NFL playoffs, but real meaningful games are happening right now. Last week, the NFC and AFC championships went down, and it's the Buccaneers of Tampa Bay and the Chiefs of Kansas City heading to the Super Bowl. Do you guys have any quick thoughts on either of those championship games? Did you get a chance to check them out at all?
And it's the first time that there's going to be a home team at the Super Bowl in a while, isn't it?
That's right. First time ever a team is hosting a Super Bowl at their home stadium. Back in the 80s, the San Francisco 49ers played at Stanford Stadium, which is 20 minutes down the road, but wasn't technically their home stadium.
Yeah.
So first time ever, Tampa Bay is going to be playing at Raymond James Stadium in Tampa Bay for the Super Bowl. Yeah, and of course we got Tom Brady back in the fold here once again. If you know anything about the NFL, you know Tom Brady, and you know that he's in the Super Bowl just about every single year. I didn't have them in my picks at the beginning of the year. I kind of redid my playoff picks halfway through the year, and neither time did I have them coming anywhere close. But I mean, duh, it's Tom Brady. He's in the Super Bowl. Like, holy crap! Come on, big duh. Yeah, just totally dismantling the Green Bay Packers in this championship game. I mean, the stats don't tell the whole story. I'm looking at the stat sheet right now, but Tampa Bay just dominated the Packers' offensive line off with their D-line. Jason Pierre-Paul and Shaq Barrett on the other side are their defensive ends and just completely ran around them. And Aaron Rodgers did not have his best day, but that's because he has nothing around him to help out. So there they are, the Bucs moving on to the Super Bowl. And on the other side,
I was
looking
looking at the Bucks D line, and I noticed they had Pierre-Paul and Sue, and back when I used to watch it as a kid, those guys were monsters.
Oh yeah,
Pierre-Paul was on the Giants, and Sue was on the Lions.
Yeah,
right?
That's right. Yeah,
they were beasts.
Yeah, Jason Pierre-Paul has some. He's a teammate of Tom Brady's now, but he went up against him in a Super Bowl back in 2010 when he was on the Giants and they beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl. He was a beast back then. And was
he the guy that lost his finger?
Yes, he is the guy who a couple of July 4ths ago blew off a couple of his fingers with some fireworks. But as a defensive lineman, you don't really need your fingers too bad. I mean, you'd like to have them, I guess. But he seems to be doing okay. Minus, I think he's missing 3 fingers on his right hand. Don't look up pictures of it; it's pretty bad. But yeah, Jason Pierre-Paul is still doing awesome, and like you mentioned, Ndamukong Suh, who's kind of been forgotten about these last couple of years, but 320 pounds is still 320 pounds no matter how old you are in the league, and he could still move guys around. No problem. So yeah, that defensive line was huge in this game, and I think really the thing I pointed to as one of the bigger aspects of the Bucs winning this game. And Green Bay just couldn't put it together. Aaron Rodgers has nothing around him to help. Devontae Adams, the wide receiver, just couldn't get open, and when Devontae Adams isn't open, then Aaron Rodgers has nothing to look at. Couple turnovers, a fumble from Aaron Jones, the running back, and that was the game basically. And people want to point to there was a bad pass interference penalty, bad in air quotes. I don't know if you guys saw it, but
that last one.
Yeah, the last call. People were mad about it because they weren't calling penalties so hard throughout the rest of the game, but it was a penalty, and Green Bay was getting run over in that game, so. We can be ticky-tack about fouls, but the Bucs were just a better team on the field, and you can pretty much leave it at that. Any more thoughts?
Also,
yeah,
they decided to kick that field goal, which I thought was a weird coaching decision.
So let's break down the situation a little bit. So it's 2 minutes left, just over 2 minutes left in the football game. Packers are down by 8 points, and they decide to kick a field goal on 4th and goal to go down by 5 with less than 2 minutes in the game, giving the ball back to the Bucs. And basically what doesn't make sense about this is if you kick the field goal, you still have to go back and get another touchdown. You have to get the ball back and get a touchdown. And Matt LaFleur, the coach of the Green Bay Packers, explained it as get points, give it back to the Bucs, and let our defense go make a stop. But the Packers defense hadn't been making stops all day, so the philosophy there kind of falls apart. And I totally agree with that. I think they should have just gone for it on 4th and down. You're getting run over in the game, and it's time to make some calls. So I totally agree with that. It's just kind of tucking their tail and not going for it.
Yeah, wouldn't you want to go for go for the touchdown and then try and go for the extra point after. At least you can tie it up and then.
Yeah, that's right. If you go for a
And then
2
deal
point
with it in
conversion,
overtime.
it's a tie game, and then
Yeah.
at least if the Buccaneers score or you don't get the ball back, then you got a chance at least. But by kicking the field goal, you give yourself no chance basically to do anything in the football game. So there we go. Any more thoughts on Packers Bucks? Anything that comes to mind as far as that game goes?
Can never count out Tom Brady.
Never count out Tom Brady.
All I've learned
is the lesson.
Oh, I had a question for you. Does
Yes.
Aaron Rodgers play another game for Green Bay, or is he gone?
Yeah, that's the big question. Packers drafted a guy, Jordan Love, in the first round last year, traded up to select him, and I think so. I think he comes back. He's got a lot of money owed to him. He's got 3 years left on his deal. I think the Packers would be, from the Packers side of thing, I think it would be crazy not to bring him back, but Aaron Rodgers has options here. If he decides to force his hand and try to make a play out of Green Bay, then he holds all the cards, and there'll be certainly a market for him out there coming off. Well, we assume he's going to win the MVP, and I'm sure he will. Yeah, that's a good question though, and one that's circulating out there. I know he's tried to play it down, but it's out there, and it's going to be a very real thing for him to think about. Shall we move on to Kansas City and the Buffalo Bills? If you're watching on YouTube, and for you guys hosting with me, you may notice that my camera just died, so you can't see me anymore. I forgot to charge it, but there you go. The other two guys are pretty handsome. You can look at them. Let's talk about Bills at Kansas City Chiefs. This is going to be a short discussion. Unless you guys got some stuff to add. But from my perspective, this was one of the biggest beatdowns I've seen on Championship Sunday in a while. Usually these AFC, NFC Championship games are quite competitive. The Bills had a lot of hype coming into this one. Kansas City was just the better team in every single aspect. Defense, offense, quarterback, receivers, weapons. Patrick Mahomes has everything. He's got the best tight end, best receiver in the league. One of the best offensive coaches ever, and Buffalo was just no match. Simple as that. Buffalo went up 9 points in the game early on, and I was 0% nervous. I've never been less nervous for a team down 9 points in a game. I just never, ever once thought that the Chiefs weren't going to come back and win the game. So that's basically all I've got. I think it boils down to Kansas City was just the better team. Do you guys have any thoughts or questions about this one?
I think when you score 21 points in one quarter, you're pretty lethal, and I think you know the direction that the game is going.
Yeah.
From what I've seen, Grayson Allen Josh Allen, he just didn't look comfortable. I think at one point he was like 10 for 23 or something.
Yeah.
And it just looked like he was forcing plays, and just looks like Kansas City was just all over them. So yeah, beat down to a T.
Yeah, he certainly didn't have his best day, but during that game, Tony Romo, who was on the call, was pointing out a lot that the Chiefs' defensive backs were all over everything, and Josh Allen was having plays where he was scrambling around for 5 or 6 seconds and trying to make a play, and nothing was open down the field. So yeah, he didn't have an awesome day by any stretch of the imagination, but just not much to work with. So I can't put it all on him. I have to give a lot of credit to that Kansas City Chiefs defense, especially the defensive back group there.
Mm-hmm.
Any other thoughts on the AFC Championship game?
Hoped it was a little more competitive, but
yeah, you certainly would like to see a little more competitive of a game, but man, what we're seeing out of Kansas City this last year and a half, 2 years is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
I thought
the
with
offense is wild.
Go for
I
it.
thought with Mahomes, because they were saying that he had turf toe, and then they were saying, or he was just coming off a concussion, so I didn't think he was going to play at all. And I thought it was going to be like a kind of a KD moment, where he like comes back and like tries to tough it
Right.
out and then gets like ejected. Like I thought there was gonna be a big hit on Mahomes and like he was gonna be out of the game and they're gonna have to go with his backup,
Mm-hmm.
but it never ended up happening. I mean, he didn't run a ton, and you could tell
Right.
that he was hurting from what I seen at least. But yeah, like he just got so many weapons, and yeah, his defense is just too good. That team is just crazy. So.
The turf toe thing you mentioned was funny because, I mean, if you were watching NFL sports radio, sports talk shows all week, it was, how's Patrick Mahomes gonna look, with the turf toe and the concussion. And after the first quarter, it's like, okay, he's fine, he's normal.
Yeah, yeah,
Like, I mean, like you said, totally, he was having a little trouble moving around, and they weren't running him as nearly as much as usual. Certainly managing that, but okay, you can still throw 60-yard bombs, so we're good.
yeah.
Yeah, it was just funny. So let's talk Super Bowl, the big game, coming up on, what day is it? February 7th, I believe it is the Super Bowl. Man, I'm excited for it. We got Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes. It's being billed as the GOAT versus the kid. But Patrick Mahomes might already be a GOAT as well. He's got a Super Bowl under his belt. There's 1,000 different storylines popping up. Like you said, playing at home for the first time, old versus young, Tom Brady versus Mahomes. You got, I mean, there's a million different things you can pull up from. But at the base of it, we got two teams loaded with ballers. I mean, guys who can just play, and there's gonna be a ton of talent, more talent than I can remember in maybe since the Seahawks-Broncos Super Bowl with Peyton Manning and that Legion of Boom defense. This might be just the best collection of talent in a Super Bowl that I've seen since then. Man, I can't wait. Do you guys have any early predictions or anything?
You think it's going to be a high-scoring game or a low-scoring game?
Man, you got, yeah, this is the thing. It's a great question. You got two awesome high-octane offenses who put up a ton of points all year, and then you got two awesome defenses who have stopped teams from putting up points all year. So it's going to be a, immovable force, unstoppable object, or whatever the saying is. And yeah, I don't have a ton of reads for this one. I don't really know. I mean, if you want my prediction, I would just early go with Kansas City. They've been here before. This is their second straight year in the Super Bowl, third straight year making it at least to the championship game. So, Andy Reid's been to a number of Super Bowls over his time. So for me, I would just go with the Chiefs based on the pedigree. I think Patrick Mahomes is better at this stage of their careers than Tom Brady is. And yeah, but man, it's going to be close. Do you guys have any predictions?
I think I think Kansas City, but I want to say that with all the confidence in the world, but you can never count out Brady.
No.
Like I said earlier, that guy has a better percentage of making the playoffs than Steph Curry does of draining a three.
It's ridiculous,
and
yeah.
he's been in like, I think it was roughly 20% of all the Super Bowls in NFL history.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that guy's a winner. I don't want him to win. I want him to spread the wealth. I want him to kind of pass the torch to Mahomes, but I wouldn't be surprised if Tampa Bay toughs it out and they win. But I would hope that Kansas City doesn't jeopardize Mahomes' career just to win back-to-back, because he's still got like 4 more years in that contract, and he still has like 10 plus years in the league.
Yeah, at least.
So yeah, that's my prediction.
That's the thing with the Super Bowl and the NFL playoffs in general, is you're getting single elimination games. So it's not like in the NBA Finals or the World Series or the Stanley Cup Finals, you kind of get 7 games for the true the cream of the crop to rise to the top. But the Super Bowl is 60 minutes, and anyone could pull it off. We've certainly seen upsets. I mean, Eagles a couple of years ago over Tom Brady's unstoppable Patriots. It happens, and don't be surprised at all if Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are holding a Super Bowl trophy at the end of all this. Mark, did you have a prediction you want to throw out there, or are you going to keep it to yourself?
I just hope that it's close. I just want it to be close.
Yeah.
I don't really know. Up in the air for me. I mean, the Chiefs offense is crazy, obviously.
Yeah.
But so is the Buccaneers offense. So
yeah.
I don't know. Low-key, I just hope it's a high-scoring game.
Yeah.
It's just shootout.
Yeah. The Super Bowl is always fun when it's cool. Like I mentioned the Seahawks Super Bowl from a couple years ago where they just beat the brakes off Peyton Manning. And, that was kind of fun in its own way. But those close, competitive, back-and-forth Super Bowls are the dream. So, yeah. And we got the right ingredients for one. So...
And you can never underestimate home field advantage, because I know for Toronto, like freaking Jurassic Park is huge.
Mm-hmm.
I think Jurassic Park alone won the Raptors some games. So yeah, just Tampa Bay being in Tampa Bay, I don't know. I think a young Mahomes might not know how to deal with that, but you never know.
Yeah, and the other angle to that is the NFL is restricting these teams, well, I guess it's only Kansas City now, from traveling to Tampa Bay until 2 days before the game. So it's going to be just like any regular road game, except Tampa Bay gets the advantage of they get to hang out in where the Super Bowl is going to be played and practice in the weather and all that sort of good stuff. So even an extra advantage this year, where in past years teams would have been able to head to the Super Bowl basically right after championship games or at least a week in advance to get some practice in the home city. There we go. Anything else to add Super Bowl wise? What are you guys going to eat? Do you have a favorite Super Bowl snack?
Wings.
Is wings the
boneless wings?
Is wings if you had to pick one thing for your Super Bowl party, is wings the true answer? I think so, yeah. Right? Right.
Wings and beer.
And
pizza.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, yeah, wings number one, and then there's a lot of different ways you can go. Bowl of chips. What kind of bowl of chips do you put out of your Super Bowl party?
Doritos.
There we go.
Big Doritos guy.
See, I'm not a Doritos lover. I like Doritos, not a hater, but not a Doritos fanatic. I'm more of a, like if you're throwing a big Super Bowl party, which nobody should be this year. Please don't throw a Super Bowl party. Should mention, but I'm more of a Ruffles classic guy. Maybe a little sour cream on the side. Can't go wrong there. But Doritos is a good answer.
Doritos. Sweet chili heat.
Oh, no. No. Sweet chili heat. No.
That's the best flavor.
Come on. Okay, we're way off the track now, but we got lots of time today, so it doesn't matter too much. Sweet chili heat Miss Vicky's, can't do it, won't do it. Sweet chili heat Doritos, can't do it, won't do it. I think they're disgusting. That's my hot take of the day. Ryan, are you a sweet chili heat guy? Which side are you landing on?
I'm an anything guy. Anything Doritos, really? I'll eat. Yeah.
All right. I got a bunch more chip questions we can go.
Sweet chili heat, and then Cool Ranch is up there.
I can do Cool Ranch. I can do it. But, I mean, you got to go classic nacho on with your Doritos.
Regular Doritos with the cheddar cheese dip, though.
Cheddar cheese dip? Whoa.
Or the queso dip. The queso dip.
Oh, okay.
That's too much cheese, bro.
Yeah, that seems like a lot of cheese. Cheese overload. Yeah. I don't know. All right, well, put it on the list. You got lots of time indoors these days to try all your chip and queso combinations.
Yeah.
Do it to prepare for the Super Bowl. But that's how we end our Super Bowl discussion. Let's move on to the next thing. We're going to talk baseball, believe it or not. Baseball is back on the docket after I promised it wouldn't be. But we're going to kind of relate this into a bigger thing. Toronto, the Blue Jays in particular, are finally getting a free agent, and they're actually getting two of them. Outfielder George Springer signed a 6-year, $150 million deal to come to the Blue Jays, and shortstop Marcus Semien on a 1-year, $18 million deal. I don't know anything about baseball, so I don't know either of these guys. Do either of you know anything about either of these people?
I know a little bit about Springer. He was on that Astros team that was stealing the signs.
Oh.
Uh-oh.
So yeah, they asked him about that, and he just said that he wasn't proud of it, but it happened, so be it. But I know he won the Silver Slugger Award in 2018, and then again in 2019. And I was watching some of the press conferences that he had, and just talking about the team and like why he chose Toronto, and he was just saying that he like sees a lot of potential in the Blue Jays and like how they've drafted over the years and like their young guys coming up. And he said it reminds him a lot of like the Astros team that he was a part of, and how they grew some like homegrown guys through the draft and then brought them up. So it's definitely I don't know how to say it. It's definitely a good feeling when you can finally say that Toronto has an all-star.
Yeah.
Through the free agency.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, Blue Jays are far from the biggest thing in town, and I mean, we're not in the streets, but you can feel the buzz in the Toronto sports news. Like, hey, gosh sakes, we finally got somebody to come to town. Toronto supposedly and is one of the best cities in the world, but we finally got someone to come here for $150 million. But let's because none of us are well adversed. Thank you, Ryan, for actually knowing something about some of the people that we're talking about on the show. That's great of you to know those things, and it's what you're here for. But let's relate this into that bigger kind of idea. Is this kind of the new era for Toronto sports? Are we finally going to get some people into town to play for our Toronto sports teams? And I wanted to kind of start this by just people who aren't in the know and are maybe confused and upset as to why we never get free agents up here in this part of the world. Let's just kind of talk about what does and has made Toronto such an unattractive location for free agents in the past. I'll just, money is the first thing that comes to mind for me. If you sign somewhere like Miami or Houston, those two states don't have any state tax. You're paying the lower American tax, the Republican tax number. And your money goes farther in the U.S. You're getting paid actual U.S. dollars. In Canada, you're getting paid Canadian dollars, which, they do. This George Springer contract is going to be $150 million U.S. He'll get paid, and they'll balance it all out somehow. But just the money thing as the first thing that comes to mind for me. Do you guys have any other thoughts as to why Toronto has been kind of a black hole for free agents?
Not everyone likes the cold.
Amen.
Some people choose a place like Miami or Houston or places like that because it's only really warm weather. I think like not everyone has to deal with a little bit of snow, especially the snow that Toronto is always expected to get. So I think that's another big reason. So
yeah,
Mark?
I think also just not like a great winning history.
Right.
I mean the Blue Jays have been decent, I guess, but like the Leafs and the Raptors, not like a super good winning history.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. Like, I think also a lot of these athletes, maybe not so much hockey, but especially like basketball, I think you just get kids who have grown up their whole lives, preparing to go to the NBA, preparing to go to the NHL, NFL. I guess Toronto doesn't have an NFL team, but they grow up thinking they're going to go to these American teams. I'm going to go to the Lakers. I'm going to go to the Celtics. I'm going to go to the LA Kings. And then you get hit with the reality that you might have to go play in Toronto, and just doesn't sit right in their brains, I don't think. What do you guys think of that?
I also think that Toronto just has a huge social media presence and like a news coverage on a lot of sports. And I know that players half the time don't want to deal with the media. I know Phil Kessel, he used to be on the Leafs, and he said one of the reasons that he wanted out of Toronto was just because of like how much he didn't want to deal with the media every day, being down his back and all that stuff. So I think that's another big thing.
Right.
I think I was going to say it's a little different with the NHL and the Leafs. Because I think the Leafs are like I think they're more attractive to play for in the NHL. People know like the Leafs have a pretty loyal fan base and one of the richest teams in the league. So
yeah, and also with the NHL, you're getting Canadian talent who, is probably more receptive to the idea of
hockey.
Going to Toronto. Yeah, do you guys have any? I think the third one that kind of comes to mind for me is you're kind of figuratively and literally on an island, like you're up alone. Canadian teams have to go through customs to get to everywhere they're going. You usually got to travel long distances unless you're playing like a Detroit team. It's going to be a bigger flight than for a lot of other teams. So I think the concerns are probably well warranted from a lot of these guys. But let's ask the question: do you think athletes are coming around to seeing Toronto as a spot they can sign with?
I think they should, at least for basketball. Like Toronto's showing that their team's real and that they have a coach that cares about winning and a kind of culture that cares about winning. So I feel like players should buy in, but people are always, I want to play in LA or I want to play in like somewhere hot with my family.
Right. Yeah.
So
yeah, I don't think it'll ever overtake LA or Miami or Toronto is just not one of those places in attractiveness. But yeah, I think you're totally right. Guys should take a longer, harder look at these Toronto teams as a very real option. Oh, relax. Ryan, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think with the whole Kawhi and DeRozan trade, I think Toronto's proven that they want to win, they want to build the culture, and they want to do whatever it takes to win. So whether you take that as a good move or a bad move, it got them a ring.
Right.
And I mean, I'm sure that the Leafs would do the exact same thing. I know they made a couple of big moves this year just to show that they wanted to win. And so far it's worked out. I think they're 6-2. So yeah, I definitely think with just the way that everything's going, like the direction that the Leafs are going and the Blue Jays are going, not so much the Raptors just because they're in a tricky spot right now.
Yes.
But yeah, I think it would definitely appeal to a lot of like outside guys coming in, other than like the negatives we were talking about. But I think the benefits outweigh the negatives.
Right on. Yeah, no solid answers, and we won't know for a couple of years whether this is really turned around or if these two contracts were just a flash in the pan. But yeah, I think we're all on the same page, hoping that Toronto gets a lot more in the future because they certainly deserve it. And why do they deserve it? Well, because they might be one of the best sports cities in North America, and that's what I'm going to use as a segue to go into our draft of the week. We're bringing this back as well. A lot of segments coming back, and we're doing our draft of the week. Best sports cities. I only went with North America, but I don't know if you guys went elsewhere. You're totally welcome to. Let's start. Let's go right to left. So Ryan, why don't you start us off with your first pick? We'll probably go 3 rounds depending on time. Okay. But let's just start it off and see how it goes. Ryan?
Okay, just because I knew we were going to talk about all the negatives about it, I wanted to say that Toronto is the best sports city in the world. So regardless of the money, regardless of the media and all that stuff, I think when you play for a team like the Raptors and a team like the Blue Jays, you literally have all of Canada behind your back, cheering you on. Even though it's a double-sided sword, they can be like against you. I just think it's really cool knowing like you're representing an entire country. Like you can't play for LA and saying, "Oh, I'm representing USA." When you play for the Blue Jays and you play for the Raptors, you're basically saying, "Okay, I got all of Canada behind my back. Let's make them proud." And I don't know. I've lived in Brampton, which is really close to Toronto, like all my life. It's such a highlight going down to Toronto and just like feeling the atmosphere. If you've ever been to Jurassic Park, you've ever been to a game, like there's so many Leafs fans and Blue Jays fans and all that love the game, passionate fans, and so I think Toronto.
Yeah. Wouldn't have been my first pick, but I totally respect you for picking Toronto first. Great point. Yeah, I grew up in Vancouver, and outside of NHL, where we have our own team, you really look to Toronto teams as your representative in the sports world, and it's a very true thing that all of Canada has its eyes on Toronto, where pro sports are involved, and an underrated fan base for sure. You saw the turnout for Jurassic Park. That became a cultural phenomenon, and just sports bars around the country were packed up to the brim when the Raptors were in the finals. So great pick. Mark, your first pick.
I'm going to go with Boston.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, I visited Boston when I was probably 9 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Or 2007. It was after they won the championship in 2007, 2008.
Right.
And I don't know if it was just because the Celtics just won, but literally everyone that, that we met in the city or that we saw walking, was either wearing like a Red Sox hat, a Celtics shirt, a Bruins hat, Patriots hat. Like, it's just so ingrained in the culture of the city, and it's such a rich history of winning as well. Like the Patriots, the Celtics obviously have won a lot. The Bruins have beat the Leafs every single year.
Yeah.
So,
pretty much.
Yeah, it's just a rich winning history.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you had the Celtics early on, Bill Russell, and then a little bit of a dip there, but then the Patriots pick it up, and then the year the Patriots lose, the Celtics win, and when none of those teams win, the Bruins win. So Boston always has a winner, it seems like. And yeah, just as far as how highly a city holds its sports teams, Boston was probably going to be my number one pick too. It's if you're a legend in Boston, you can hang around and never pay for a meal again. Yeah, great pick. I'll go on to my pick. I'm kind of stuck between two here, but I think I'm going to go with Chicago, Chi-Town. You got the Michael Jordan Bulls, which is obviously what comes to mind when you think of Chicago sports first, right off the bat. But you got the Cubs, the Blackhawks, and I'm sure I'm forgetting some. But a lot like Boston in that it's not one of the major cities. It's not in New York or in LA, and so sports teams kind of become a bigger focus. And I visited Chicago, much like you visited Boston. I went during the year that they won their World Series, and man, just the energy was electric to finally have another winner in that city. And man, watch out, if the Bulls ever come back, that city is gonna erupt. If the Chicago Bears that's the one I forgot. If the Chicago Bears ever come back and win a Super Bowl, that city might fall to the ground, because Chicago has sucked since 1985. The Bears have, and that fan base is still crazy. So, there you go, Chicago as my first pick. Ryan, you're number two.
I've actually gone to a White Sox game, and that they're pretty crazy out there for their sports.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah, I went to a game at Wrigley Field as well.
Yeah, that's where I went to Wrigley.
Yeah.
Wrigley's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite stadiums I've ever been to.
I had a chance to go to a Chicago versus Chicago game, but the tickets were like $300, that's why I didn't. So for my second pick, I picked LA.
All right.
Just because of how much they control the sports universe. So you have the Lakers and the Clippers. It's so popular in LA. You need two teams. Mm-hmm. Baseball, they have two teams. They have the Angels and the Dodgers, obviously. In hockey, you got a lot of teams out in that California area. You have the Kings, and then you have Anaheim Ducks, which is really close to LA anyway. And yeah, like when stars come to their team, they bring them in and they hold them tight, and they just like worship them, because you can see how much love Kobe's gotten. all around LA. There's so many murals, and he's still being celebrated. They love LeBron out there. The Dodgers just won. They've got like so much rich winning history, and it's just a fun environment to be around, from what I can tell as a fan. So LA is definitely one of the top, I would say.
Especially recently, we got the Lakers coming on with the championship. Yep. We got the Dodgers winning their championship. LA Kings won one.
They won
not too long ago.
Yeah, they won almost back to back, I think, not too long ago. Yeah. So.
Right. Yeah, great pick there with the LA teams. Let's get it moving over to Mark for his second pick.
I'm gonna go with New York.
Oh, dang.
Although New York hasn't won a lot in basketball, and I don't think they've won a lot in hockey in the past couple of years. I think baseball's probably been their most successful.
Yeah, the Yankees.
It's a city I've visited as well, and kind of just being in that city and seeing how everyone just supports their teams. Like, if you still support the Knicks after all these years, like, you have to be a loyal fan base. Like, they're trash. People still go to the games and still have hope for like their draft picks. It's just another city that will like die for their team, which I respect.
Yeah, no, I mean, you mentioned it with the Knicks fans, right? Like, haven't won a lick of nothing in years, and that's another one. If the Knicks ever win a championship, if the Giants or Jets ever win a championship, or the Rangers, the city is gonna fall apart. Like they're like, it will burn to rubble with just how excited people are. And man, like when one of those, like the Giants can get like the right team and win, or the Knicks can get some sort of superstar, I mean, that guy would be a New York legend. If you can win in New York, you're big time instantly, because of that big media spotlight. Great pick. My third one, you guys took both my picks. Screw it, I'm gonna go Cleveland. I'm picking Cleveland. Another city that hasn't won anything, but just as far as fan bases, you saw how excited the Cavaliers fans were when they won a championship just a couple of years ago with LeBron. Cleveland Browns fans were freaking rabid these last couple months when they finally got into the playoffs after 21 years of not being there, something like that. And I think just as far as fan bases go, dedicated, you hear the blue-collar mentality. I think Cleveland embodies that, and they'll be my pick. Let's move on to round 3. We only got like a couple minutes left. Just say a city for round 3, real quick, rapid fire round.
Miami.
Okay. Mark?
Dallas.
Ooh, okay. I'm gonna go Pittsburgh.
Okay.
We don't have any time to explain it, so we're just gonna leave it there. That's the end of the draft of the week, and that's the end of an episode. We're coming to a close. Thank you so much, you guys. Ryan looks like he's frozen there, but he looks happy while he's frozen. So
yeah,
a good place to end. As always, check us out on YouTube. No episode last week, but we'll be posting again there, youtube.com/Marauder Morning. Check us out on our website, cfmu.ca. Search us up. We're called Marauder Morning. And check us out on the radio if you're in the Hamilton area, 93.3 on your FM dial. However you do it, however you listen, we're very grateful to you for checking us out. Guys, any last words before we depart?
No, sir.
No, sir.
This was fun.
Right on.
Ryan's dead.
Ryan's frozen again. But I'm sure he would say thank you for listening, and we love and appreciate you all. Oh, there you go. He's back. Ryan, anything to say? You got 15 seconds.
Thank you. Stay safe.
Right on. Yes, stay safe, everyone. Stay indoors. Wear a mask. We love you all, and we will talk to you very soon. The end.